we're talking with Mel Goldberg, and I want to ask you, Mel, about your background, your family and your childhood, if you can start telling us about that.
Background, I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania. My brother was a serious musician who was then going to enter what was he going to be part of the
Denmark School?
Yeah. And we had nothing going for us there except we had Sam, who was going to Juilliard. And so the whole family emigrated out of Erie, Pennsylvania to New York, where my mother and father had a candy store business in East New York with people like A.B. Relish coming into the store. And whenever A.B. Relish was there, it was be quiet, don't excite this guy. So we got to be close highs against A.B. Relish, who was the #1 guy in Murder Incorporated for years. And I met Arnie Shulman. I was going to, at that point in time, I wanted to be a musician, as my brother was, except he was a real musician and I just played a little bit of violin and saxophone. But Arnold decided that it was better for me to be a real musician, and he kind of, led me into theater and the Actors Studio at the time, which Arnold was one of the beginning members. And from there, that was my, interest to see if I could make a living as a writer.
So you started out as an actor?
No, never even dreamed I would be an actor. No, always the part of it that interested me was writing. And very early on, I was able to meet, again through Arnold, a number of people he knew who were part of the Actors Studio. And I met a lot of the people he knew, who I knew, and we collaborated on a few things in years gone by. And some of them were pretty good. Some of them were things that you collaborate on that didn't work out.
So what was the first writing that you got paid for?
That I got paid for? I can't even remember. What did I get paid for?
Well, you wrote for a couple of those Jewish
oh, yeah,
papers.
Yeah. I wrote for something called the American Hebrew, vignettes of Yiddish American life. And that went along, and I did that for quite some period of time. And by that time, I'd become totally involved, with Arnold in writing for things like Hawaii Five-0.
That was much later.
Yes, we've more time.
Uh-huh.
So just take me through. Did you write for radio?
It seems to me that I did, but I have no real recall that I did any radio writing.
So, we have you starting out in television with shows like the Nash Air Flight Theatre and Starlight Theatre.
Yeah, all of those.
Can you talk about those a little bit?
Well, those were the early days of TV, and it wasn't really very difficult getting an assignment to write because there weren't that many writers writing for television. Those people who were interested in that kind of writing were probably much more into screenplays, where much more illuminative and larger sway on over material. But Arnold, my friend, was always into something that works a little bit better for him. It worked for me, you know. So we collaborated on some stuff early on, and the beginning of my writing there was for Studio One, some of the CBS shows. I did a lot of writing for that, and it was jogged my memory a little bit when they had some retrospectives on that particular show and the people who wrote for it, as well as who was the guy who I can't remember, just died.
Mike Wallace.
Mike Wallace, of course, yeah. And after that, I got a few good screenplay assignments. Somebody wanted to do a Western for a young actor named Clint Eastwood. And,
we're moving too fast.
Excuse me?
We're moving too fast.
You're skipping over too much of your early career.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
No, that's fine. I want to know about, just staying in New York for a minute.
Oh.
I want to know, how did that work? Did you write on assignment, or did you submit unsolicited material to these shows?
I did very little writing while I was in New York. I went to school. I I didn't really know what my life was going to be about, so I decided I would take some classes. It was free. I could go for nothing, and so I enrolled at the hell did I enroll? In one of the, taking some classes in screenwriting and television writing, just that I had no idea that that's where I was going to wind up. But that's what it was free. Go take a class, do something. And I got into television writing very early on, and it was something that's, this is something you can do, and something I can do, and something I will do, and, it'll work out.
So when you were writing for Playhouse 90 and Starlight Theatre, and did you write on assignment, or did you submit?
Very often not. Very often not. Somebody would come up with something that had been written, and they'd say, do a screenplay on this, which I did. Arnie Shulman already had become a part of the Actors Studio and was doing very well. And whenever he could, he would throw a bone my way. He would say, no.
So you said you had some things you had already written. Tell us about those things.
Yeah, well, the things I had written were back in when we first moved out to Brooklyn. I took a number of classes in just about anything. It was free, why not? And I took some things that, in the long run, I felt would kind of help me, like things that I never really was gifted to do, which was the Actors Studio, stuff like that, which was, being partly a writer and partly a producer and partly of anything. But that was fun. That was a big learning experience. And also met with some of the guys who became the shining light of that era.
So you wrote, I've got a lot of credits here. I've got Climax.
Climax, yeah.
I Love a Mystery.
Right.
Stage 7.
Right.
the United States Steel Hour.
Right. All of those, yeah.
You wrote on You Are There. Tell us about that.
Well, You Are There was a quality kind of assignment for very, very bright people to work for, to work with, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being part of a writing group where this is what you seem to be doing. We're not happy about it, Mel. Let's look at it again and see what we can do. And with that, I met a lot of really good people, and on every level.
So, Climax.
Climax, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, those were shows which were, I believe, all CBS shows, and anything that CBS was doing, I could be privy to, in a way. You know, I could go up to whoever is producing and say, "Gee, you got an opening here. I'd love to do one show for. I'd love to do this. I've written that. Let's just look at this." And so a lot of stuff that I had already done wound up as part of some of those assignments.
So General Electric Theatre was a CBS
GE
show.
Theater, yeah. Well, the GE Theater was kind of funny because Arnie Shulman worked for that, and I don't think he was particularly fond of either the show or.
The United States Steel Hour.
Right. Yeah, I wrote that.
You wrote that. And Playhouse 90. You did a Playhouse.
Yeah, Playhouse 90 was one of those plum assignments that sometimes drift your way. Again, I'm not sure that Arnold didn't do it first and then indicated that I ought to go over there and see if they got an opening, which I did, and which they had. So I wound up writing. They were the quality shows of that period.
Zane Grey Theatre.
Well, Zane Grey, why not?
So I have a ton of these credits. And you wrote a lot in those days. Murder Inc.
What was that?
I've got Murder Inc. Well, no.
Oh, Murder Inc.
Yeah.
Murder Incorporated.
Yes.
Yeah, major show.
Movie.
That was a movie, wasn't it?
It was a movie, but it was originally first a TV script.
Oh.
And it led to a lot of work.
So all through the 50s, you're doing this in New York. Kane's 100. Tell us about
Kane's
that.
100. What? Do you remember that show?
That's before my time.
I do remember something called Kane's 100, but I'm not sure exactly what. There were so many shows being thrown at you, so many offers to do things. And whatever I hadn't on my plate, Arnie Shulman wound up on his plate. And he said, "Mel, why don't you do this? This is good. This will be good for you."
I think Kane's 100 was a show about a guy who
I think you were on the periphery of what it was.
Who swears that his girlfriend is killed by a mobster, and he's going to kill 100 of these mobsters.
Something like
yeah,
that.
Something like
that's
that.
close enough.
That's close enough. Okay, so now we get to the Untouchables.
Well, quality show of that period that most writers would have been delighted to write for. And I was too, you know. It was a quality show, a major CBS show through that period. And I wrote a lot of them.
So, Naked City, you wrote a teleplay for Naked City with Howard Rodman.
Yeah, with Howard, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about
Howard,
that.
of course, is not with us anymore, but Howard was a first-rate writer and lived in New York on right next door to where we were. And it was fairly clear that when my wife was there with Howard's wife or whatever, they talk about what they were going to do, and it was clear that Howard was going to make his career writing in television and movies. And through that, backdoor, I was able to get some work and some assignments.
So, Blues for a Junkman. Is that something that you remember?
Yeah, that was a show for Naked City, I believe, and it was about jazz, which was always the thing that I was most interested in as a form or as a background. So I had written a couple of shows about blues and blues players and blues whoever were into blues, and I got into that thing and that facet of music.
Going My Way.
I don't recall what was my.
Don't remember that. The Greatest Show on Earth.
Yeah, that was one of those shows that. God, I've forgotten that I wrote. If I start thinking of all the things I wrote, I'll never get out of it.
The Lively Set.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Do you remember much about the Lively Set? What?
It was a racing picture that was originally for Elvis Presley, and they instead put
Oh,
Bobby Darin
yeah. Right.
All right,
I was
so-
asked
okay,
to
now.
write something for Elvis Presley, and I didn't know much about him as a performer then. It was just the beginning of his career, and it seemed to me I was coming down from some really important material to this, but he turned out to be a remarkable performer, and some of the best credits I've ever done were with Elvis.
You didn't do anything with Elvis Presley, Dad.
Bobby Darin, was
Bobby
it?
Darin was.
Yeah, Bobby Darin was somebody else who I met through Hawaii Five-0.
No, he was just cast in the Lively Set. It was before 5-0.
Bobby Darin also had mainly a musical background, and I became attached to him because I was a musician too. I could play, I could orchestrate, I could do a number of things in that field. And Bobby Darin, somebody came up with an idea for doing Bobby Darin's life story, and I wrote it with Bobby.
So now we get to Mr. Novak. You wrote a lot of Mr. Novak.
Yeah, a lot of Mr. Novak.
So tell us about that show, what the premise of it was. And
Well, Mr. Novak was a show for CBS, I believe, at the time, and I had an opportunity to work with them or for them. Through all of the things I'd done, very often it would lead to something else. Gee, why don't you do Mr. Novak? Well, I've got enough stuff on my plate. I don't need Mr. Novak. Well, take a look at it. And somebody would hand me a script or something, and I'd do it. And I'd say, yeah, I can do this. Through that kind of conceit, yeah, I can do anything. Just give me the ideas of what you want, and I'll translate them into what I think would be right for the series. And that was one of them.
So did they have a writing staff? How did that Mr. Novak work?
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 guys who did most of the scripts. I was one of them. I was the lead one, and I would come to other writers like Arnie if he wasn't doing anything, Arnold, I say Arnold wants to come and want to take a crack at one of these. In those days, we have a feeling we could do anything, and we would make it work.
Okay, so who was in Mr. Novak? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't really. I remember the show. I remember the name of the show, but I don't remember that much about it. And it's not unusual because there were so many things. If I was doing a show for CBS, then they'd call me in to do this on this other show, or we were doing a show called Mr. Novak, and it's about music. You'd be good at this, Mel. So it would lead to a variety of assignments.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what you did after Mr. Novak?
I think I retired. I'm not sure.
Oh, Big Valley.
Oh, Big Valley. That was a major kind of a credit. It was a Western, and I got a chance to be one of the 2 or 3 lead writers for it, and it was fun and it was good. And one of the shows I did was a Western called Hang 'em High, and that became a very major credit for me.
You wrote on Big Valley
Yeah.
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. You were one of the main writers on that. So there was a writer on that called Ken Trevey. Did you know him?
Oh, I know Ken Trevey.
Tell us about him.
I knew very little about him. It was a busy kind of a show, and if there was an assignment that was open, they'd know, well, maybe Ken is working on that, and find out what he's doing, and maybe you can either help out with it, or maybe he'll give you another thing that he was doing that you might be happy to become involved with.
Right.
So everything led to something else.
So Big Valley, was that made in New York or California? Must have been made in California.
Yeah, it was in California.
What brought you to California?
Well, originally we were brought to California because my brother was going to. He did a lot of work. He was a violinist and was very, very good at what he did. So his deal, his older brother, was going to be in New York. His basic thrust of where he would be in his life, and naturally I met through him, through music he did, and found out that I could also play a little bit. Not like my brother, but I could play.
No, California. I'm not New York.
Yeah.
I'm asking, what brought you to California? To California here,
Yeah,
Los
yeah.
Angeles.
Well, at that point, I wanted to take some classes here, and they indicated that maybe I ought to enroll and take some stuff at in California here, so I wouldn't be. And so I went to school studying at. Where did I go to take California? I did a lot of work there.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about, so Big Valley.
Yeah.
Big Valley was shot in California.
Right.
Is that the show that brought you here?
No, not that. I was brought here because this is where the work was. It wasn't a matter of just big. This was the thing that had been done. By that time, I'd met Arnie Shulman, and he had met everybody in the world up here, and whoever he knew, I knew, and so there was plenty of opportunity to work. There was no such thing as what am I going to do after this? After this, I'll do something else, and something else, and something else.
So was Mr. Novak shot in New York or California? Mr. Novak, do you remember where
I'm trying to think. of where that was shot. I think it was shot here in California. I should remember who did it and who became, involved in the shows. But it was here. Most of the stuff after I became involved in television here came through the involvement I had already made.
So, Mr. Novak that looks like that was the show that brought you here?
I don't think specifically Mr. Novak.
Just that live television had gone kaput.
Right.
And there was no writing assignments really in New York, so we had to move out here because we just wasn't.
Well, there's some truth in that. They were.
Okay, so you tell us that.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Novak is just another one of those shows that I was able to become attached to and write with. And shows like that were always assignments. There was never such thing as being, gee, what are we going to do now? We just finished one. I know you finished one, you'll do another, and another, and another. And
so,
and another.
High Chaparral.
High Chaparral, that was, I don't remember that much about it. Again, it was a Western because I was working on another Western, and I remember specifically that the young guy producing High Chaparral asked me to drop in. And if you could drop into a place and talk, see, what are you doing? What's going on? What kind of show what are you looking for? There was always something that they'd be looking for something that I could do, would do, had already done.
So, the FBI, you did.
Yeah.
You did an episode.
I don't remember too much about the FBI. It was I think it was during a period of time that it was better off not to be part of the FBI.
So now we get to Hang 'em High.
Well, Hang 'em High was a story that they came to me, a Western, which they wanted for a young actor whose name is Clint Eastwood. And I thought, gee, that's down. He's a young guy, I don't know anything about him. And he's going to be the star of Hang 'em High. Well, not really. He was just the star of that particular show. But it was clear there are people you work with, this guy is going to be a major, major star. And of course, I was not wrong about that.
Do you want to tell us more about the making of the movie?
Hang 'em High.
Yes.
Well, really, it was a stock Western. It was not really very difficult. I think I got along extremely well with Clint because he wanted something a little different than a stock. Where I wanted something with a little bit of character. He wanted something where there was a part written. And I think that appeals to him. And I think it appeals to him that I was not just a standard stock writing a Western. I wanted it to be a little different, a little better. And it turned out to be different and better. Just because of me? No, but because of me and because of Clint. We worked together on the script very closely. And I've never gotten the experiences that we had together. It was good.
Were you on the set?
Oh, yeah. Just about every day. And if I wasn't there, he would usually have somebody say, why don't you drive and see what the hell is going on the set? He was very close to writers, at least certainly to me, and wanted.
Now we get to Hawaii Five-0.
Well, my major credit of all. Even today, I get called on and go down to see whether there's an assignment open that I might be able to fit in, even though I'm an old timer, well beyond my past. But it was very good for me through this period of time. All of the people that I met who were wound up, whatever conceit it may seem, having a certain amount of respect for me as a writer, whatever I was doing, that I was a writer. I did material that actors could use, could relate to, which they did. And I was there. I was there on set. They wanted me on set.
So, but you were on Hawaii Five-0 for a bit. So
yes.
Tell us about the show, about... who else was working on it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure who was working on it at that point. You recall? On Hawaii Five-0? I know I got to know, the people who were still on as it was the police part of Five-0.
Jerry Ludwig and Jerry Cooper Smith.
Yeah, Jerry was an old friend.
One of the scripts we brought in, you wrote with him.
Jerry
Cooper Smith.
Okay, he gave us a whole bunch of scripts a couple of years ago. So you were on Hawaii Five-0 a long time.
Oh, yeah.
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 How did that show work? How did the setup work? Did they have a writing staff, or were...
No, they didn't have writing staff. They had a group of writers who did the show. I was one of them. Jerry Cooper Smith was one of them. And once you do a show like that, you know the show, you know the innards, you know what makes the thing go. And so you always want to go back to a writer who was a professional, who did the show. If I, let's say, wasn't involved, then there are writers who were. But it was always openings for somebody who could do that kind of show.
Dan August, you wrote for a show called Dan August? Do you remember that?
Dan
August. And I've got you here as having written for the Mod Squad?
Mod Squad, yeah. I don't remember too much about Mod Squad, frankly. I know I worked for them, but it's funny when you start looking, I worked for all those shows.
Bonanza?
Yeah.
The Evil Touch?
Don't know that. That's not
that? Okay. Police Surgeon?
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So that's another one of them.
Kodiak?
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
I don't really know what to say about it. There were so many of them during that period of time that not one of them. Hang 'em High, of course, stood out because the guy who was the lead in that show was a young actor who was not a star, who became a star, and dragged along the rest of us who were in his wake.
The $6 Million Man.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't honestly remember what the hell it was all about.
You don't?
No.
All right, I'm going to ask you now about agents. Have you had the same agent most of your career?
My first agent was in New York, and she was mainly a theatrical agent, and she got me a fair amount of work in theater. It was before television, and she got a fair amount of work for me, frankly. I was never not at leisure, there was something going on. I can't even remember specifically one of the shows that we did together.
So once you came to Los Angeles, did you keep that same agent? You got a new agent?
No, I didn't keep up with that agent at all. I had enough contacts, frankly, with enough people in Los Angeles that there was plenty of places to work. And they were open, always available to me. I never had any problem saying, well, gee. Then by that time, Arnie Shulman knew half of the Actors Studio. And he knew all of those people that, were working. And through him, I knew all of the people that were working.
So you got an agent here?
Yes.
Yeah. Who was the agent that you got?
I can't remember. Did I get Flora, the original agent, stay here?
Yeah, Flora Roberts was in New York.
No, Flora Roberts. Yeah, maybe. Georgia, okay. Yeah. She was the agent, Flora Roberts, a theatrical agent, who was kind of funny because she thought I could do anything, and felt compelled to call me at 3, 4, 5 in the morning because she's having a meeting with a really hot screenwriter, and he could use some help with the work. Maybe you could get a real good assignment out of it, stuff like that.
Do you remember? Is it okay if I interject every once in a while?
Yeah.
Help them? Remember who she tried to get you to work with, but you didn't think it would?
Oh yeah, she called
Stephen
once.
Sondheim.
Yeah. She called once and said, Mel, I want you to listen to this. This woman is sensational. This girl is a singer, a songwriter, singer. And so I had groggily went to the phone, and my wife, picked up part of it. This girl is incredible. She's marvelous, marvelous. Try to get involved with her. He was one or two people that I wanted to become involved with theatrically, who I thought would be just not good for me, but good to be working with. And she was one of them. And I can't even remember her name.
She also asked you to work with Stephen
What was
Sondheim.
it? Yeah.
You're the guy who wrote West Side Story and all those.
So when you're in the days when you were submitting a lot of original material, where were you getting your stories from? Did they just come to you, or?
Well, in any way, if I was doing something and I did have an agent, and they said they got something else made, why don't you over and see what they've got? It doesn't hurt to have two, pieces of material that you're working with at the time. And that's pretty much the way that worked. As I told you, Arnie Shulman always was on the go and doing something. And if he was involved with something, I really could become involved with it, if it was right for me.
Yeah, but in the days when you were dreaming up original stories,
right?
Where did some of those stories come from? What did you use was it from the newspapers or?
Newspapers. One, the one about Murder Incorporated came from newspapers because they were getting a lot of insight into how the gangs worked. And I was one of the leading guys working in that kind of a gang setup.
Mm-hmm. When you were writing full-time, did you have a routine for writing? Did you get up early in the morning or write late at night? What was your routine?
My routine was, I've got a hell of an assignment here. I better not blow it, and I better get started with it now. I could work at any time. I think that's something about most of us who are professional writers. We do what we have to do when we have to do it. And it was never fazed me that this might take longer than it should have taken. It took the amount of time it took to grind out a screenplay that made sense, that the actors could relate to, and so on and so forth.
So you didn't write any particular time of day?
No.
No.
Time of day was when I got up.
So tell me about your writing office, your writing space. What's in there?
I don't know. I have so many things that. What have we got in there?
What things can't you do without?
Mm-hmm.
What things can't you do without?
What can't I do without?
Yes.
Well, I could not do without a typewriter. I did all of my, this was before, I did all of the work I did on a typewriter. And I was maybe one of the world's fastest typists. Really.
What else?
What else? I don't know. Overall, this was a time when we were involved working. We were involved and had so much to do and so many people that we had to meet. And you've got to meet this one here too, because this guy here is doing a series. And so it was always kind of on the go. And it felt good to be in that kind of demand. That hasn't been true in the years ago, but then it was.
So writing seems to come easily to you.
Yeah, very easily.
Yeah. So what's the hardest part?
Of writing?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm good at it. I was good at that, really good. The only thing I was ever really, really good at was writing, that I was always one of the best around doing the work that I was doing. And there was always somebody saying, well, why don't you get Mel? And, my best friend, Arnie Schulman, was even more so. So we would always say, well, Mel, why don't you take a look at this and see what we can do with it?
So what's your favorite part of writing?
Well, it's hard to say favorite. It's a nice thing to be able to hand a piece of material, and they were going to say, this is going to be a teleplay. I don't know where we're going with it, but that's what we've got you, Mel. You figure out how we're going to work this thing out. And I enjoyed that aspect of it. It was being nose to the grindstone and do what you have to do in order to get the script done.
Are there any scripts any stories you would have liked to have told that you didn't get the chance to tell?
Amazingly enough, most of the stories that I wanted to tell were told one way or the other. The stories about the days with the Actors Studio. There was a lot of material there, and I was at the core of a lot of it.
I wanted to ask you about if you had, if I was a young writer just starting out, what advice would you be giving me?
Boy, it's so difficult now to know really where you go and how you start today. Young writers probably would gravitate to the Actors Studio, and if that wasn't working, they would do plays. Like in his later years, Arnold is doing a play. Arnie Schulman went back to want to try something he hadn't tried in a long time. And I suppose that's the way to go if you have the energy and to do that, and to kind of say, well, I'm going to just sit down and work this out. So I don't know. I'm not too sure that I have that same kind of energy anymore.
But in terms of craft, what other kinds of advice would you give? Are there tips, writing tips you can give me?
Not really. Not really. I know that I wrote for I wrote for anything that was open. If they needed this and this, they could go to me. I'm a pro, and I will get you what you need. I will put the words down on paper, so that and the space left for music if we want music, and I can do that, and have done that.
Do you think it's important for writers to read scripts, to read things that other people have written?
Yeah, I do. I really do. A lot of people, I think, would say no, that I can't do that. So that's what he did or she did, but that's not what I do. And I've never felt it necessary to go back into that kind of research.
Do you do a lot of research when you're...
Excuse me?
Did you do a lot of research when you were writing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
So
yes.
Tell us a research story.
Well, I think the story that I wrote on Hang 'em High was basically out of research. It was about things I knew or had read about the days in New York with the Jewish gangsters. And I was kind of intrigued with that part of it. And so read about it. And there was a lot of material that you could read out of it. And if you can read a lot of material, you don't have to worry about stealing material because it's all been done and it's all down in front of you, and it becomes available to you, or at least it did to me. And that's...
You've worked with a lot of directors over the years.
Yeah, a lot of good ones. I worked half a dozen shows with Sidney Lumet back then. Who else did we work with?
Well, of course, Ted Post on Five Eye.
Who?
Teddy Post on Hawaii, on Hang 'em High.
No.
So, are there any stories from your career that you'd like to tell us about?
To tell you again, I would hope that most of the stories have been done, that I have done them, that they're done. And if they're not as good as they should be, because time has a way of eviscerating or material, I love to take a look at some of the stuff again. There's so many of them.
I have another question. How did you meet Arnold?
We were going to take some classes, which were all free, so take classes, go do. So I went up to Columbia, and he was going up there too about something, I don't remember what, and one of the things I went up for was to see whether I could write scripts and like the Gershwin brothers. That's what I wanted. That was my job, to be George and Ira Gershwin. That didn't happen.
Didn't you room together with Arnie at one time?
Oh, for a long time. For a long time, yeah.
So tell us about that. Where was it?
Well, Arnie, I think, had a place in... Where was he living?
She's asking when you were living together, Dad.
Anyway, he had a place, and he had a girlfriend, or two, or three, or four, and I often went over there when he did or was having. By that time, David's girlfriend has a great deli, and we eat over there very often. And that's about eating wise. For somehow eating was never important. Strangely,
No, I'm asking you about the flat, the cold water flat that you lived with Arnie in New York.
Yeah. The first one wasn't cold water, was it?
It was before I was born.
No.
It was the one with the shower in the middle of the place.
Yeah, we owned
shoes because it was so dirty inside, and Mom would come into the place.
Yeah. Well, we had a really a great relationship, and the best relationship I've ever had with somebody that I might be working with or wind up working with. It was just fun. It was fun. Also, Arnold was extraordinarily funny and bright. So it was good to be there with him. And I hope so the same way about me, the period of time we spent together. And I think we helped each other without ever sitting down and saying, well, you teach me something. No, it was all open.
Okay. Well, I think we might have exhausted the questions. So, but that was a lot of fun. And now I know where I've met you before.
Really?
You're Isabella's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the restaurant he was
yes.
getting into.
Yes.
It's sad because he remembered things much better a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any particular story that you might
prompt him about?
That might be
absolutely.
Because go ahead, feel free.
Yeah, because we've got a bit more time.
Do you remember? You seem to have forgotten almost everything about New York. Is that true? Do you remember? You lived with Arnold. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course I remember.
Now, who was the guy you used to bring up that Arnold hated and thought was totally untalented?
Oh, yeah.
Remember who it was? Did you remember?
I don't remember who it was.
Mel Brooks.
That's right. He took this extreme distaste to Mel Brooks, and he is unfunny. Why do you have to bring him up here? He was saying, why do I have to put up with this guy? And I said, well, tell me, when Mel Brooks, what am I going to say, Mel? You can't come up and have a cup of coffee with us? But he was funny. He's not funny, this guy, Mel, but he's just not funny, Mel. That was it.
Any others that you can?
He used to always tell the story about when he got his first assignment. Remember, you went over to Audrey Wood. You know Audrey Wood, the agent. She was Tennessee Williams' agent.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she's also Arnold's agent. And she said, why don't you come over with me? You can see kind of how an agency works. And when he was waiting out there, there was a script on the where they put the magazines, and he was reading it. And do you remember the story?
Yeah. I don't remember what it was.
Tell us. Okay, all right.
Why don't you prompt him with
Yes.
a question?
So tell us about your first assignment.
My first assignment?
Yes.
Well, after we came out here, I had an agent.
No, your first assignment in New York.
Yeah, when you read the script at Audrey Wood's and then you studied it and you took the script to CBS, and before you would walk back, Arnold said he called and wanted to do it. The producer.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember that. There was something about. I had a friend who knew everybody in town, and could get assignments about it if he wanted it. That Arnie, and he was very helpful.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mel.